Blood was already trickling down General Vanessa Montgomery's wrists, the handcuffs cutting sharp lines into her skin, and Officer Brennan leaning in close enough for her to feel the arrogance in his breath as he said, "Ma'am, stop resisting," tightening the cuffs with a little twist that let her know this was personal. He had no clue that somewhere out there, the Secretary of Defense was watching this on a live stream, his finger hovering over a phone, ready to call Pinewood County's chief judge. But before I get into how this went from a regular Tuesday to a national headline, let me just ask, have you ever witnessed a moment so wrong you felt your pulse jump in your neck? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you believe we need to stand up to discrimination, hit that like and subscribe. Let's keep fighting together. But let's back up a secco. Did a 4-star general, a woman who'd spent her life commanding soldiers and brokering deals with world leaders, wind up in cuffs on a sunny street in Pinewood, just for driving while black? Vanessa Montgomery, yeah. That General Montgomery never expected this. Not after 30 years breaking through every ceiling they built for women and people of color in the Army. She led teams through chaos overseas, negotiated with folks who looked at her and only saw what she wasn't. But on this day, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, she felt weirdly exposed, almost like she'd time-traveled back to those summer visits as a kid, sitting on her Aunt Josephine's porch, hearing parents call their kids inside whenever she tried to join their games. Pinewood hadn't changed. The street still looked like a Hallmark postcard, but underneath, old rules stayed stuck like rust. Vanessa's first clue came at a gas station, the attendant's smile freezing as soon as she stepped out of her rental, eyes tracking her every move, like he was waiting for her to pocket a candy bar instead of just paying for gas and a bottle of water. "You passing through or staying?" he asked, and she gave the old answer, practiced over a lifetime, just visiting family. Years in the military had taught her which battles to fight and which to let pass. Still, driving those quiet streets, she noticed the way cops clustered up in the black neighborhoods, how every glance held a question behind it, the way her own memories started to hum in her veins. She was wrapping up a call with her XO about some NATO exercise when the police cruiser pulled up. She did everything right 10 and 2 on the wheel, eyes ahead, no sudden moves. But the cops didn't care. They shadowed her for 3 blocks before flipping the lights. Vanessa kept her voice even, asking, "May I ask why I'm being stopped?" But Brennan just demanded her license, eyes never leaving her hands. First, we asked the questions. The vibe changed quick. Brennan's hand drifted toward his holster as his partner circled to her passenger side. "Step out of the car now." She kept it slow, military calm. "My ID's in my purse. May I get it?" Suddenly, the situation exploded. "Don't move." Guns unholstered, the whole street shifting into slow motion as the sun set behind the trees. She didn't flinch. Decades of training had taught her to hold steady, even when the real threat was never the person with the gun, but the story they'd already written about you. Brennan yanked her out, shoved her up against the rental so hard her breath left her chest, then snapped the cuffs on tight. Across the street, a kid named Marcus Washington, a high schooler, fresh from basketball practice, started filming on his phone, hiding behind a van, his hands shaking but holding steady. Vanessa's voice never rose, even as blood began seeping from her wrists. "I am General Vanessa Montgomery, United States Army. My ID number is 872-459-103. Please contact the Pentagon liaison." The officers exchanged smirks. "Yeah, sure, General. We'll call the president next." Then they started searching her car. No consent, no cause, just digging for something to justify what everyone watching already knew was wrong. Marcus uploaded the video with a caption, "Black woman claiming to be a general arrested in Pinewood for nothing." It took off instantly, jumping from group chats to national hashtag. Suddenly General in cuffs was everywhere. By the time Vanessa was at the station, fingerprinted, mugshot, stripped of her dignity one procedural step at a time, Sergeant Wilson and the others just treated her military career as some elaborate lie. She looked around the holding cells, even others, almost all people of color, most in for stuff so small it sounded made up. But then a young woman, Shanice Williams, recognized her. Wait, aren't you General Montgomery? My brother talked about you after that thing in Eastern Europe. The energy changed. People straightened up, started whispering. Word got to the sergeant. Now, for the first time, someone checked her credentials. Out in the world, Marcus's video had gone viral. News vans swarmed the Pinewood station. Aunt Josephine, recovering from pneumonia, called Vanessa's aide at the Pentagon. That aide, Colonel Jackson, set off alarms up the chain, and soon enough the Secretary of Defense himself was making calls demanding answers. The Pinewood police chief watched body cam footage and realized just how deep his officers had dug themselves. The mayor called. The Pentagon called. Even the DA, Patricia Reynolds' sharp suit, perfectly rehearsed smile showed up, offering a release and an apology for this misunderstanding if Vanessa would sign an NDA and let it all go. Vanessa shook her head, calm but firm. I won't sign anything. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a pattern. At that point, the Secretary of Defense called the county's chief judge, Blackman, mid-dinner at the country club. The message was clear. Fix this now or watch the National Guard roll in. Blackman tried to play it by the book, but Harrison rattled off every federal law they were breaking. An emergency night court was set for 10 p.m. Vanessa called her longtime military attorney, Sarah Jenkins. By the time Sarah landed with her team, the courthouse was surrounded by cameras and protesters, black, white, young, old, all realizing this was about more than just Vanessa. The hearing was a circus media packed to the walls, locals on edge. Colonel Jenkins laid out every constitutional violation: unlawful detention, excessive force, racial profiling. DA Reynolds tried to spin, but Marcus's video and Vanessa's testimony shredded their story. The judge's face turned pale as the evidence stacked up. Recordings of officers Brennan and Larson mocking racial quotas. Statistical proof that Pinewood's black residents were 10 times more likely to be stopped and searched. Twist of all twists, the DOJ revealed they'd been investigating Pinewood for 3 years, with an undercover FBI agent in the county building, documenting the cover-ups, the quotas, the hidden settlements. When the DOJ agents marched into that courtroom, it was like watching the house of cards tumble in slow motion. They dropped stacks of evidence, 77 similar incidents, dozens of ruined lives, settlements buried under NDAs signed right there in that same courtroom. And now the cameras were rolling. Chief Gardner resigned. The DA quit. Brennan and Larson, their bravado gone, started blaming each other to try and cut a deal. Even Judge Blackman, who'd spent his whole career siding with law enforcement, stood in front of everyone and admitted in the record that he'd been blind to his own bias, that this case had forced him to see the system for what it was. When the ruling came down, it was historic. Brennan and Larson, guilty of violating Vanessa's constitutional rights, recommended for federal prosecution. The police department, placed under federal oversight, mandatory body cams, civilian review boards. And this part hit every Ionia, full unsealing of all prior settlements, transparency forced out into the daylight. Vanessa didn't take a payout. She demanded structural reforms, new leadership, and a scholarship for Marcus, whose courage turned a phone into a weapon for justice. Vanessa, now in uniform again, stood on the courthouse steps, media flashing, the crowd quiet. "This isn't just my story," she said. "This is about all the people who never had a camera, never got a phone call from the Pentagon. We have to fix the system, not just punish a few bad actors." She announced a national initiative, military and civilian partnerships for police training, de-escalation, and accountability, with her leading a new task force on police reform. And Marcouche was offered a scholarship to West Point, living proof that a bystander can change history. 6 months later, Pinewood's new police chief was Dr. Samansa's civil rights leader. Complaints dropped. Trust began to rebuild. For Vanessa, the most meaningful moment wasn't on the courthouse steps, but in her Aunt Josephine's kitchen, sharing breakfast, remembering the generations who had survived worse with less support, hearing, "Your grandmother would be proud." Real change happens when you're prepared for the moment and refuse to be silent. So here's the question: could you hold your fire, stay strategic, and let the system reveal itself, knowing that real change sometimes means waiting, documenting, and moving when the time is right? Or is the only way to fight injustice to call it out in the moment, no matter the risk? Tell me below. Is patience and strategy more powerful than protest, or do we need both? Hit like, subscribe, and share this story if you believe in real accountability and lasting change. Thank you for listening, because justice, in the end, belongs to those who refuse to let silence be mistaken for defeat.